Some moments don't just change history, they redefine it. In the Star Wars galaxy, no single event reshaped politics, warfare, and even the measurement of time itself more than the Battle of Yavin. What began as a desperate, near-suicidal attack by an outmatched rebellion ended with the destruction of the most terrifying weapon ever built, and the sudden realization that the Galactic Empire was not invincible after all. Before Yavin, fear ruled the galaxy. After Yavin, fear cracked, and once fear breaks, empires begin to collapse. Life under the shadow of the Death Star. Before the battle, the Empire's grip on the galaxy rested on intimidation, perfected at an industrial scale. At the center of that strategy was the Death Star, a moon-sized battle station designed not merely to win wars, but to prevent them from ever starting. Its ability to destroy entire planets in seconds was meant to turn rebellion into a mathematical impossibility. Why resist when resistance guarantees annihilation? The destruction of Alderaan proved the Empire's philosophy in the cruelest way imaginable. A peaceful world was erased without warning, its loss broadcast across the galaxy as a lesson. The message was clear: obedience equals survival. The Empire believed fear could scale infinitely. It never considered that fear, when pushed too far, can also inspire defiance. The stolen plans that changed everything. The Death Star was marketed as flawless, but perfection is often a myth sustained by arrogance. Hidden deep within its design was a thermal exhaust port, a necessary engineering compromise that created a catastrophic vulnerability. That weakness reached the rebels only because of a covert mission led by Jyn Erso and her team, who sacrificed their lives to steal the station's schematics. Their success gave the rebellion something it had never possessed before: proof that the Empire's ultimate weapon could be destroyed. Those plans transformed despair into possibility. The rebels no longer dreamed of survival alone. They could now imagine victory. A farm boy enters the war. At roughly the same time those stolen plans reached Rebel Command, a young man from a remote desert world was discovering his place in the galaxy. Luke Skywalker did not begin his journey as a revolutionary. He was a farm boy shaped by loss, driven into the conflict when the Empire murdered his family and erased any chance of a quiet life. Under the guidance of Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke learned that the Force was more than legend. It was intuition, balance, and trust, qualities that stood in stark contrast to the Empire's obsession with machines, control, and overwhelming firepower. That philosophical divide would soon decide the fate of the galaxy. The Empire's fatal confidence. When Princess Leia slipped from Imperial custody, the Empire followed her trail straight to the Rebel base on Yavin 4. To Imperial leadership, this discovery didn't feel dangerous, it felt convenient. One overwhelming strike could end the rebellion in a single afternoon. The Death Star arrived with the calm assurance of inevitability, its super laser warming up to erase the moon and everyone hiding on it. There was no pause to reassess, no worry that the rebels might actually fight back. The Empire had already written the ending. That unshakable certainty, born of years without real resistance, was the mistake that sealed its fate. A plan built on desperation. The rebels, by contrast, had nothing resembling confidence. Their plan was brutally straightforward and frighteningly thin. A handful of starfighter pilots would fly straight at the Death Star, drop into a narrow surface trench, and race through a corridor of fire to reach a single exhaust port. Proton torpedoes fired into that opening might trigger a catastrophic chain reaction. Might. There would be no second run, no reserve squadron, no clever alternative if the first attempt failed. Every pilot understood the odds. Success depended on flawless timing, perfect aim, and a willingness to press forward even when survival seemed unlikely. Fire in the trench. The moment rebel squadrons committed to the attack, the Death Star answered with overwhelming force. Turbo lasers carved glowing scars through space while waves of TIE fighters closed in with predatory precision. Pilots disappeared from scanners almost as quickly as their names were called, their deaths unfolding in seconds with no time for rescue or retreat. The battle tipped toward disaster when Darth Vader entered the trench himself. He wasn't simply another ace pilot. He was fear given form, flying with an unnerving calm that shattered rebel formations. Each pass tightened the sense that the mission was slipping away. Hope thinned with every loss, the choice that changed everything. When Luke Skywalker finally made his trench run, the situation was collapsing around him. His targeting computer struggled to lock onto the exhaust port. Enemy fire closed in. Then he heard a familiar voice, Obi-Wan Kenobi, guiding him from beyond death. Luke made a decision that defied logic and training. He switched off the targeting computer. Instead of trusting machinery, Luke trusted the Force. The proton torpedoes launched, curved into the exhaust port, and ignited a chain reaction that tore through the Death Star's core. Seconds later, the Empire's greatest symbol of power vanished in a blinding explosion. The impossible had happened. Victory paid for in lives. The destruction of the Death Star did not feel like uncomplicated triumph. Too many pilots never returned. Entire squadrons were lost so one fighter could reach the target. Celebration arrived intertwined with grief, because victory had been bought with lives that could never be replaced. Yet even amid mourning, the rebels understood what they had achieved. The weapon that had terrified the galaxy was gone. For the first time, resistance felt not just brave but achievable. Shockwaves through the Empire. Inside the Empire, the consequences were immediate and devastating. Grand Moff Tarkin, along with much of the senior command, died aboard the station. Decades of experience vanished in a single blast, replaced by hurried promotions and untested leadership, elevated out of necessity rather than merit. Confidence evaporated. Discipline hardened into suspicion. What had once been a rigid hierarchy began to crack under the weight of its own fear. Palpatine's paranoia. The defeat at Yavin cut deeper than a lost battle for Emperor Palpatine. He did not interpret the destruction of the Death Star as a single catastrophic mistake, but as proof that rot had spread throughout the Imperial system. In his mind, failure could only come from disloyalty, weakness, or hidden ambition among his own officers. Trust evaporated almost overnight. To restore control, Palpatine turned to fear with renewed intensity, unleashing Darth Vader not just as a battlefield commander, but as an enforcer of loyalty. Officers were publicly punished, quietly removed, or executed outright to remind the rest of the hierarchy what failure cost. The Empire survived the shock, but it emerged more brittle and unstable, relying increasingly on terror to mask the strategic confidence it had lost. The rebellion ignites. For the rebels, Yavin marked a fundamental shift in identity. Until that moment, survival had been the goal. Stay hidden, stay alive, endure. After Yavin, momentum took over. Recruitment surged as systems that once stayed silent began to believe the Empire could actually be defeated. Isolated rebel cells started coordinating their efforts, sharing intelligence and striking with new boldness. Shipyards, supply depots, and manufacturing hubs became targets instead of symbols of untouchable power. The Battle of Yavin did not end the conflict, but it transformed scattered resistance into a growing war effort, fueled by belief as much as strategy. When history reset its clock. Few events are so transformative that they redefine how time itself is measured. The Battle of Yavin earned that distinction. Galactic history came to be dated as BBY before the Battle of Yavin and ABY after the Battle of Yavin. The battle became the axis around which modern history turned. That alone speaks to its significance. If you enjoyed this deep dive and want more cinematic breakdowns of the moments that changed fictional worlds and sometimes feel a little too real, like and subscribe. New videos drop every week and you won't want to miss what comes next.